the flood insurance program that could soak Long Islanders with unaffordable premiums, and that would lower their property values and dramatically hurt them. This plan is quietly sloshing around Washington, but we don't know the details. You say, well, if they have a plan, what is it? What are they going to do? They're redoing flood insurance. Is it 3 big binders? A whole book of pages? No, this is the whole plan. And that's why we're worried about it. We're worried because when it's only this big, I don't want to cover your face. When it's only this big, here, I'll hold it here. When it's only this big, who knows what the heck they could put in it. Oh, there's that nice lady, yes. She's coming to our event, I think. Someone's going to help her. Okay. But it's going to interfere with our event here. How long do you think that'll take? 30 seconds?
Depends on the alarm system, sir.
Oh, it's her car. It says the handicapped, yeah. You see the handicap signal on the plate. Okay, so this plan is 221 words. That's it.
Wow.
What trouble, what terror lurks in those words, we have no idea. The irony was we're talking about this on April Fool's Day, and it's a joke that anyone would consider the livelihood of millions of Americans, millions of Long Islanders and New Yorkers in a 221-word document. It means they may well be trying to hide something. And that's what's happened in the past. When these new plans have come out in the past, the prices went through the roof for homeowners, and we had to fight long and hard. You may remember this 5-6 years ago. 2014. But 2014, 5 years ago, and now we're up against this again. So what they're doing is they're saying they're going to put in new insurance rates based on logical rating variables. If you don't know what that means, join the club. Neither do we. Hi, thank you for coming. Liz? No, thank you. You can't, I guess it'll be hard for you to... Okay. Continue, says Garrett, and continue I will. Okay. So, how can we ram through a national flood insurance plan that could unfairly put a bullseye on the backs of Long Island and New York homeowners without more consultation? So I have a 4-letter message to FEMA. H-A-L-T. Halt. Stop. Stop this plan. Let us know what you're doing. Let Congress and homeowners have input, not just insurance companies, not just any of these people who benefit, and we can get things done. Here are the questions that FEMA has to answer before coming out with any plan. First, how will the new rates be calculated, and what is the criteria considered as part of the calculation? Second, how does FEMA define logical rating variables, and how many private data companies will be gathering and measuring the data? Who will independently peer review the data? Third, has the agency considered the systemic implications of insurance rates that could double and triple, and the impact on homeowners, the impact on property values? Fourth, what, if anything, will FEMA do to install stricter controls placed on lawyers who seek to defend insurance companies against homeowners? This is a problem we ran into 5 years ago. And what are they going to do to prevent this from happening again? Well, you may remember a couple of people were put on trial for their illicit behavior. So, we want reforms, but we want them good for homeowners, not for insurance companies, not for lawyers, not for some bureaucrats. We want an NFIP, a flood insurance program that provides homeowners with flood protection at a stable and fair cost. We want more accurate flood maps that utilize the best technology and sound data, not buzzwords. We want stricter controls placed on lawyers to defend, as they defend insurance companies against homeowners. and better oversight of insurance companies participating. In short, it takes more than 221 words to get this done. The public is entitled to know. So again, halt, stop. We cannot let you go forward with this until we know what's in it and how it affects the homeowners of Long Island and elsewhere. And with that, who is the next speaker, Mr. Garrett? Rob. Rob, you're on.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me get my papers here. Rob Agostisi, the county executive. No, it says county executive. Who knows? Maybe he has plans in the future.
One thing at a time, Senator. Thank you, though.
But our new city manager, because our previous city manager was elevated by the citizens of Nassau County to be its controller. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, on behalf of the residents of the city of Long Beach, we want to thank Senator Schumer for being here today and for his unwavering advocacy and his support of this community. We here owe Senator Schumer a debt of gratitude for the post-Sandy initiatives that have rebuilt this city stronger, safer, and far more resilient than it ever was before. Thanks to Senator Schumer's efforts, there's a $42 million boardwalk on our beautiful beach, paid for with 90% federal share. Speaking of that beautiful beach, the Army Corps of Engineers has nearly completed a total beach restoration project, complete with jetties that have expanded the size of the beach, in addition to protective dunes that line the boardwalk. The Long Beach portion of that project was valued at over $80 million and paid for with 100% federal share because of Senator Schumer's leadership and commitment to this community. Against that backdrop, it's ironic that we find ourselves here today discussing NFIP changes that could potentially price people out of the very coastal communities that were just rebuilt. The NFIP was designed to promote life in coastal communities like Long Beach. Instead, its new program threatens to snuff that out. There's no guarantee that people who rebuilt their homes and did everything that was asked of them won't be penalized. More troubling, however, is that the NFIP's new risk calculation method, which it will use to calculate premiums, apparently includes the cost of rebuilding. This assures that people in this region, which already has the highest cost of living in the country, will suffer a disparity. And while rebuilding costs arguably shouldn't factor into any insurance policy at all because they're not based on risk, the NFIP at the very least needs to factor in policyholders' income. Right now, we're uncertain as to whether the NFIP plans to develop some sort of income ratio approach to avoid disproportionately burdening those who live in this region merely because they chose to live in this region. So again, on behalf of all residents, I thank Senator Schumer for being here today and drawing attention to this critical issue which threatens to disrupt all the progress that's been made. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Rob. And you can see, what? Next. Okay. Well, when are we having Laura? Okay. Legislator Ford. Oh, Denise Scooby-Doo, as I call her.
And I always love when you say that.
That was a song before most of you were born.
I know. And unfortunately not us.
Who sang it? We looked that up once.
Randy and the Rainbows.
Randy and the Rainbows.
Okay,
Oh,
I do
yes.
my homework. Okay, thank you, Senator Schumer, for your advocacy regarding this matter, which will impact thousands of homeowners in our neighborhoods. On October 29, 2012, 95% of my district flooded due to Sandy. These residents found the strength and the resiliency to start their recovery and rebuilding. We were subjected to floodwaters, loss of electricity, the loss of our cars. Those that had to elevate had been subjected to finding an interim place to live, filling out paperwork with New York Rising, having their caseworkers changed, and personal information lost. Some have been subjected to unscrupulous contractors who have stolen their money. Many who have filed for help are now possibly facing clawbacks and recapture. Everyone has had to also use their own monies, with some emptying their bank accounts. But we persist, and we are determined to see this through. There are groups such as COED, and that's Liz, who have helped many of these residents navigate the process and been their voices on many issues. We have traveled a tough road, and it appears it may get tougher with this proposed change on reform to flood insurance. I am angry. We are now reeling from the changes in the SALT deduction, and instead of refunds, too many people are paying. Those who are required to elevate are getting hit with an increase in their market value, even though this is unlivable space. The residents along the South Shore are hardworking, middle-class people. These increase in taxes are impacting their ability to stay here and raise their families. Now the federal government and FEMA want to reform the flood insurance program and ultimately raise our premiums. Flood insurance to raise them dramatically. Instead of reaching into our pockets, I ask you that you find the funding to help protect us against future storms and flooding. After finally coming home, we should not be forced out due to officials, elected or not, who have not gone through what we did. It is easy to sit in your warm, cozy homes and offices and watch on TV the horrors of natural disasters. If you experienced it, you would not be looking to make the changes you are proposing. I am speaking for the thousands who are going to be impacted. Give us a break and stop this callousness. Once again, I want to express my gratitude to Senator Schumer, who continues to keep watching over us. It was soon after Sandy that he came to Island Park to fight for the funding to help rebuild our communities, and here he is today still fighting. And all I got to say is you got to love this guy from Brooklyn. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. A lot of Long Beachers were originally from Brooklyn, or their parents, I must say. Okay, now we have a number of advocates. What? Okay, next, according to the great Garrett Armwood, who I always listen to, our great supervisor, Laura Gillen.
This is why we love Garrett.
Thank you, Senator. I would just like to say thank you for your continued advocacy on behalf of Long Island. You know, this is not an issue that simply affects Long Beach. It affects all of our shoreline communities throughout the town of Hempstead and beyond the town of Hempstead. And what we know about these proposed changes to the National Flood Insurance Program lets us know that this could be absolutely devastating to the middle-class families throughout the South Shore of Long Island, many of whom are still recovering from Sandy years and years later. So I thank you for bringing this issue to light. I thank you for your advocacy, and also I thank you for your push for transparency, which is so crucial. We need to know what these changes are. It needs to be more than, how many, 221 words?
Good, yes.
We are dealing with problems with transparency throughout this recovery process. In the town of Hempstead, we had to just send out 13,000 letters to recovering homes impacted by Sandy that should have been sent out years and years ago by prior administrations. We are giving families the information they need in the town of Hempstead. The federal government should do the same, and the president should do the same. So thank you, Senator. I appreciate your advocacy.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. And I just want to say this, yes, Laura makes a point. This affects hundreds of thousands of people on Long Island, all the way from Long Beach to Massapequa, all along the South Shore and on into Lindenhurst and throughout the whole South Shore, which is one of the most populated areas right by the water, right by the ocean in all of America. So it has huge effect on Long Island. And even if you don't have flood insurance, and even if you live in the middle of the island, if flood insurance prices go way up, all of the property values go down because it decreases the value everywhere. And with that, let me call on Michelle in Singa, who's done a great job through the years in Adopt a House.
Hi, I'm Michelle from Adopt a House. We're a nonprofit organization that's been involved with multiple aspects of this disaster recovery since Sandy hit the South Shore of Long Island on October 2012. We've been fortunate enough to continue working with Senator Schumer since early 2013 on recovery efforts, as well as other issues, including today's topic, flood insurance. Today, we once again stand with our esteemed senator, along with our families still recovering from the disaster nearly 7 years ago. In that time, we've seen several changes to the National Flood Insurance Program and may again see yet another. The latest is FEMA's Rating Risk 2.0. That's what they call it. It says this system will determine a customer's flood risk by incorporating multiple rating characteristics, as Senator Schumer said, like different types of flood, the distance a building is from the coast or another water source, or as the town, thank you, also said, or the cost to rebuild rebuild a home. Where this may seem like good intentions here, we've seen this before. On many of our South Shore residents are already paying thousands of dollars yearly for flood insurance, only to be shortchanged when filing claims in Sandy that has impeded their recovery to this day. Many of our homeowners from like the town I live in, Lindenhurst, are in modest middle-class neighborhoods, often on small canals, may not even have the water, may not even be on the water, or even have a water view. And it's because of this we have reason for concern. What risk will we be taking with our rates? It's already been reported that there will be winners and losers in this. Many of Long Island's homeowners have already seen dramatic increases over this time for their flood insurance, and we wonder why others drop out of the program. Large premiums already, but a very low payout. What risk are we willing to take with our rates when many are paying thousands in these premiums, had no claim in Irene, but one in Sandy, that were paid nowhere near enough to rebuild, let alone to elevate? We saw FEMA's interpretation of Bigot Waters of 2012, which increased premiums to unrealistic rates for policies that then led to the Homeowner Flood Insurance Affordability Act of 2014, as Senator Schumer had mentioned. To correct these unsustainable rates under Bigot Waters. Where is the affordability study promised then, as once again, affordability is in question for our families? Regarding the private insurance companies, well, they already manage many NFIP policies, and our trusted insurance expert and broker that we've worked with for over the years has warned and has now confirmed many policies are being cherry-picked, and they will not take a policy if it already had a flood claim. At this point, too many of our families do not want to take a risk on FEMA with their rates again, since they already went 2 rounds with FEMA on flood insurance, and we cannot afford to do this again. Thank you, Senator Schumer.
Done, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for always being here for us. We really love you.
Love Long Island. Now we have 3 homeowners who are affected that represent the hundreds of thousands who are. 2 of them are here with me and will say a few words. Ray Flammer, whose house this is right here, and Dot Richards, who lives over on Nebraska, right? Yes. Okay. And we have Liz Trotton, who came. Press. What? No, you don't have to speak. We're just acknowledging you. Thank you. Hi, Liz.
Jim Mulvaney.
And Jim Mulvaney as well. Okay, next to Liz. So Ray and Dot, why don't you guys come up and say a few words?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Are you going
to say something?
thank Senator Schumer for coming out today. Flood insurance affects us all in Long Beach, and this is my investment. This is my future, and I have to pay more. It's like a backdoor tax. I demand transparency from FEMA, and I ask them to halt. Thank you.
Well done. Dot?
Hi. I want to thank you for being such a great advocate for us. And another thing to consider with the way this program is going, there's a lot of senior citizens that have to really live from from check to check, their Social Security or whatever, and they cannot afford to keep paying out more and more for this insurance, which is very important to have, but we know they don't pay the full value of the policies, which many homeowners learned through Sandy. So this is very important this proposal has to be revisited and really, really looked into before they can just pass it like that.
Well said, Dot and Ray. So now we'll take questions on this subject and then on any other subject.
FEMA, this program has a $30 billion deficit, I think, in 2017, and FEMA told Bloomberg that the higher premiums are a feature of the program because they want to incentivize people to move away from areas that are just going to flood again year after year.
Well, that shows the callousness of FEMA and the lack of understanding. So many people have chosen to live on the water, and our job is to protect them and allow them to do that. It's not that they shouldn't pay something, but they got to pay an affordable amount. And as Michelle said, last time a lot of the payouts, once they had flood insurance, weren't adequate. So Who's FEMA to start telling people they ought to move away? Reminds me when I was fighting to prevent Carrier from leaving Syracuse, the head of Carrier and United Technologies said, well, who would want to live in Syracuse anyway? You know, the arrogance of some of these people just kill me.
But it's part of the response to climate change because the rising sea levels will make it more.
Well, let's do something about climate change as well. But they didn't cause climate change.
Where are we all
Mr.
gonna
Flammer
go?
didn't cause climate change. Richards didn't cause climate change. Ms. Preston didn't cause climate change. They're not using...
In a related subject, the Army Corps of Engineers is considering multiple plans to deal with climate change and rising sea levels. And some have expressed concern that some of the plans that would maybe protect Lower Manhattan wouldn't do enough for parts of Long Island, including Nassau and Long Beach. Do you have similar reservations about what's being...
Yes, I think the plan has to cover the whole New York metropolitan area. They're studying this. This is a long-term plan. The short-term stuff was already mentioned, I think, by Rob, how we've gotten beaches and finally jetties. You know, the big mistake in the 1990s, the surfers, I think, didn't want jetties, and that led, wasn't that right?
That's correct.
Whoever those surfers might have been. That reminds me of another song, Denise, Surfer Girl.
That's it.
But in any...
Do you have concerns that...
I have the same concerns, that it ought to be comprehensive.
Is there a timeline on the program, like, or the?
On which program? Well, we don't know. They're keeping this all in the dark, and I'm here to sound the alarm before we get a plan that's horrible and we have to beat it back like Denise mentioned, Michelle mentioned in 2014.
Senator, are you saying that insurance should not be based on proximity to the water or the...
Oh, of course it
building
should.
the house?
But it's always been the flood insurance program has always been one to make it affordable for people. And they may be getting away from that, and that's what they're worried about. People are going to have to pay flood insurance. That's not a problem. It should be affordable to middle-class people. Okay? Thank you, everybody, and happy April Fool's Day. Thank you.